Okay, you're still tuned to Plus TV Africa and watching Today with John and Helen live. Thanks for your company. Dr. Tosin Oshikoya is our next guest, and she will be in control as we look at first aid and CPR. What and why? She's a medical director with over 24 years in the healthcare industry, spanning clinical management, NGO administration, and business management, education, and trainings. For her strong belief in the power of information and knowledge, she founded Lavender Healthcare in 2015. It's a pleasure to welcome you today to the conversation on this program.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I must say it's great to have you on the show today, Dr. Tosin. Can I call you Dr.
And
Tosin?
again,
Dr.
another
Tosin.
doctor joins us today with the glasses.
So, first aid and CPR. Let's see how familiar we are with that. And let's hear from a few people first.
Let's quickly just dash out
let's
and
dash
hear.
out and see what people know about CPR and first aid.
Everybody that is trying to go on waterways, they definitely need to get some kind of safety gear, you understand? You have to listen to your instructor, you have to put on a safety gear because you don't know, that's an unfamiliar terrain, to be honest. You can be a fantastic swimmer, but when push comes to shove, you still need just some kind of protection from nature, you understand? But
the life jackets is for preventive measures and for safety at the same time. So I don't think it's something I can try. Besides, I've not even gone beside the water before because I have phobia for water. So, but trying it for the first time, I think I have to wear safety measures so as to prevent some accidents from happening. So sometimes I'm sure that death must have been preventable, but then they didn't take preventive measures so that was how everything happened.
People should advise themselves. Advise yourself and wear life jackets. Me, I will wear life jackets. Do you understand? I will advise you to advise yourself because I think eventually people always just take their own advice. Do you understand? So you can advise them to take the advice and make it theirs. You get me? Me, I will wear life jackets. But people should advise themselves. Have some sense and advise yourself.
No, I won't. It's safety first. Even if you can swim, sometimes we can't predict the ocean. We can't predict wind. The waves are controlled by wind. So I won't advise you. There are sometimes the wave might come more than what you can control. So safety first, life jacket.
absolutely not. I feel like everybody that is trying to go on waterways, they definitely need to get some kind of safety gear, you understand? You have to listen to your instructor, you have to put on a safety gear because you don't know, that's an unfamiliar terrain.
All right, so they're talking mainly about something that just happened very recently, an actor who got drowned, in the course of doing his business. And he went into that very strange and unfamiliar terrain, unprepared, totally unprepared, without a life jacket, they call it, or learning how to swim. And there are lots of questions, that come from there. And so we just thought we should look at precautionary measures. How aware are we? How important is first aid and all of it as it relates to taking care of ourselves? So those are views from the street. Now we get to learn from the professional, and she is right here. All right, Doctor, you heard some of those comments? All right. So in the light of recent accidents like the popular Nigerian actor's tragic accident while traveling by boat, how can families better prepare themselves with first aid and CPR knowledge, especially in situations involving water-related trips? By the way, what is CPR?
CPR is cardiopulmonary resuscitation. So cardio means the heart, pulmonary focuses on the lungs, resuscitation is to bring back to life.
Who does it? Who can does it? And what do we do?
Everybody should know how to do CPR. It should be a basic life skill. Just like you know how to cook, you know how to swim, you know how to do your taxes, I guess. You know how to do CPR and first aid.
That's quite interesting because, I'll say that...
do you know how to do CPR?
Oh, we do CPR. We do basic life support exercises in my Rotary Club every year. It is something that we do every year. So we teach even law enforcement, we take them in turns. Yes. So I am quite familiar with it. Right, but now I want to know what role does swift action play in increasing the chances of survival in water-related accidents like this? And what should families know? Families.
Okay. So the first thing is that because of this incident being on the water, we're kind of focusing on water. And I'll kind of go towards that. But generally know that anytime there's first aid or CPR needed in whatever situation, swift action is essential. And why is that? If your heart stops beating for any reason at all, you have a limited time in which you need to get the blood pumping around the body, because the heart is essentially a pump taking blood around the body. So if it stops, blood is stagnant, I apologize, and the oxygen is not going around. The brain is an organ that cannot be deficient in oxygen or it will start to die. Within 4 minutes, brain damage starts.
Within
4 minutes of no CPR or no blood getting with oxygen getting to the brain damage starts. Within 10 minutes, brain death is almost certain. So you can see that there's limited time to that, what you need to do to keep that person alive. So in case of the water now, so let me focus on that. You really can't, no matter how urgent it is, you really can't start anything for that person while the person is still in the water. Yeah. You need to get the person out. And that means the quick action is get this person to get to either the boat, which is surface, or get to land so that we can start CPR. And for some other first aid conditions, swift action is necessary. Somebody is bleeding, somebody had a stroke. So there are a number of conditions in which swift action is essential. So if you ask that, what should families do? Being proactive is the best thing. Plan that there is a possibility. I'm having growing children. We're going to go on a trip. We're going to travel. We're going to go for a fun activity. Can something happen? Do we know first aid? Do we have a first aid kit with us? Is there emergency medical services that I can quickly contact? Is there a lifeguard at the swimming pool? Those are the things you need to do as a family so that you are also being proactive.
It's a good thing we're talking about this, because very often, especially during public holidays, we hear, XYZ amount of young people went, camping, in one of the beaches, and that just also recently, the bus on Third Mainland had an accident, and a few people, so when you're talking about swift action,
I know.
We need to know, but sometimes these things are emergencies that you have not prepared for. All right. So how can you share? Can you share an experience, for example, where CPR and first aid, was used to make a difference?
And I'll give you a personal story on that, because when I teach, I usually use personal stories. So you understand that these things are everyday occurrences. I'm going to start by saying that first aid is not necessarily an active thing you need to do. First aid is a wide term for meaning that I'm helping this person until medical care is available. So, and I could mean just talking to the person, reassuring the person, whatever. So let's not just go to the worst case scenario. Even the minor injuries can become major injuries if you do not tackle it properly. So in the water now, for instance, water safety is paramount. So you take your child to the swimming pool. You understand? And the part I want people to always understand is that do not assume you are okay, that things will be okay. If you're going to the swimming pool, make sure there's a lifeguard available. Make sure the lifeguard is also active and listen to the lifeguard or the people there. So this is a personal experience, and one of the reasons I actually started teaching first aid was my son, and then was in the swimming pool, and I was not there, so it wasn't as if I was there, but my husband was there, and only to get a call later that blah, 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 blah. I don't want to get into the long story. Well, basically, the lifeguard my husband wasn't seeing him, he didn't see anything. The next thing he saw was the lifeguard getting into the pool, getting my son out, and bring him out. And we wondered what happened. We didn't know what happened. First incidence of a condition that showed up in my son that it's necessitates him being cared for. That was the first time it showed up. So it's not even that you cannot swim. A medical incident can happen in water and you need to act. That was one of the things that propelled me in this direction.
Awesome. All right, John.
Well, I mean, I'm just totally awed by by all of this. Now, misconceptions.
Yeah.
CPR. Like I said earlier, I'm quite familiar with basic life support training and stuff like that. There are points when you get to mouth to mouth resuscitation. Yeah. I'm looking now at misconceptions. What are some of the misconceptions that we as people locally have about CPR and first aid?
Okay.
You know, that families might have.
Okay.
And why? What should we do?
So a few things I would say, as much as I can bring it to mind. So first of all, CPR is not something we do to bring the person to start. How will I explain this? What it does, its purpose is that I want to keep blood moving around the heart. So you doing CPR, you are becoming a manual pump, taking over an electric automatic pump that is the heart. So you need to start it immediately because that pump was running consistently, continuously, you're going to start it. So that's one. The job is to keep blood moving. The next thing is that CPR for an adult is a bit different from that of a child and that of an infant. So the fact that you know how to do it for an adult doesn't mean you can't do that for a child, but there are minor differences. First of all, the child is smaller than an infant. That is a baby. It's even more smaller. My grandma is funny. It's more than... Okay,
it's
so
allowed.
That's that. The other thing is that breathing for somebody. Yes, CPR connotes I'm working on the heart, which is where I do the compressions. I'm pressing it down to squeeze it to allow blood to come out. So that's the compression part. That's the heart part. The pulmonary part is I'm breathing for this person. So you would assume that I should do both. And I'm saying that for an adult, it's not necessary you breathe for that person if you are not comfortable doing so. So mouth to mouth is not something I would ever tell you to do because one, you can pass on something from yourself to the person, and two, the other person can pass on something to you. So have the face shield or have the face mask. If you do not have that, you are allowed to just continue compressions only until medical help comes.
So it's not a case of safety first?
It is always a case of safety first. That's
if mouth to mouth is what to save the person.
It's safety to you.
Okay.
We always think that the victim in danger is who we should prioritize, and I'm not saying that's not the case. But the person who is also helping, you do not want the person to become a victim also. So the safety, we always talk about the fact that when you want to start helping somebody, think of danger. Not danger that the person is in a problem. Is there any danger for me as a responder helping you to be alive, so to speak? So that safety is that if I'm not going to be safe down the line, why would I do mouth to mouth for you? Because I'm putting myself at risk. Because also know that even biologically, the blood in your body is still going around, has enough oxygen, so that's not a problem. So you you don't have to breathe for an adult. But for a child or a baby, you have to. So you now have to take the decision is, can I do this mouth to mouth and take that risk? But if it's your spouse, if it's your child, why wouldn't you do mouth to mouth? So I'm talking about strangers now.
Okay, I have picked out one keyword that you just used, responder. Around here, whenever something happens, we have hordes and hordes of responders.
We are all responders.
We are all responders, but we're not trained.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So I want us to look into that. So how do you think that this doesn't sound like gibberish to most people? How do we get to
this information out?
The basic rules or steps or tips, you know?
What I've taught, I've done the professional ones where you're doing for the workplaces, for schools, and I've also gone into different localities. Like I shared something recently when the life jacket thing came up. I said, okay, in 2021, I made it a condition that you must provide life jackets for me to come into Morocco. I don't care that the place is calm or there has never been any accident, safety first. So I had to share that. So that was 2020 when I went to Morocco. Obviously, you can imagine what's all around. Yes.
Morocco.
That's true. I'm not sure what the video's called. I think
Morocco is gone.
Oh, that's true. I think because I used to live around that area, so I've held on to that. So it's Makoko. Thank you for that. And it was, how it is, you are going to have to come down to their basics to make them understand, even though CPR is actually a bit technical and people don't want to really grasp all the nitty-gritty. You have to still tell them that. So what I always tell them is, first, it is common sense. It is common sense. Somebody is bleeding. Your first thought is, I'm going to stop this bleeding. You're not going to look at it coming out. But we're now going to teach you what is the safest way to do that. The ideal thing is that somebody is showing a condition that warrants medical care. You should go to the hospital. But there's already that resistance to going to hospital. So it's not that people cannot do what is right. They either because of costs or whatever, they just negate doing it. Those people internationally that have taught us about first aid have taught us that first aid is for the first few minutes until medical care is available. They didn't say it's for the rest of the day, for the rest of the month. It's for the first few minutes. So ideally, you should be going to the hospital. It's just that in that time before the doctor is available, either I get there or they come to us, what should I do that will make sense to help this person? So that's the way I always try to frame it. It is common sense. What makes sense? Don't use all these household things, especially onions in my eyes for seizures, palm oil for poisoning. So we always try to go against it. That it actually doesn't make sense. Your body doesn't have to have all those external things on it to make sense to work. So why would you now use that in a medical emergency? So,
okay, so what you're saying, you're calling medical emergencies.
Yeah.
You know, that's probably for the professionals. What we're looking at today are basic information and knowledge and tips that people, you know, family members, or when you're on the street, you find somebody who is in need, something you can just do immediately.
So you want general tips on different possible scenarios?
Yes,
okay.
because we're interested in community awareness and education, you know.
Okay, so I would say a few things. If somebody is unconscious, you find the person collapsed, first of all, try and see if there's a response. So you call the person. Please do not slap the person. Do not pour water. Inadvertently, you might drown the person, honestly. So that's one. So somebody's unconscious, tap it for a response to be sure this person is actually not sleeping, drunk, or pranking you. Then call for help. The next thing to do is place the person on the floor, interlock your hands, and press down firmly on the middle of the chest. You have to do this 30 times to 2. So I do this 30 times, and I breathe for him twice. So that's the act of CPR. I've made it as simple as possible, but it's actually a practical skill that somebody has to learn. You do not get it right just from hearing it, but at least you know that I need. So the important thing is make sure you recognize that there's an emergency, call for help, start CPR. So the CPR is I compress on the chest 30 times, I breathe twice. And that 30 times I'm doing it, I'm going at a rhythm of about 100 to 120 beats per minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, up to 30, I breathe. Up to 30, I breathe. Somebody asked me a question yesterday.
That's some work for even the person who is...
Oh, and that's why I'm going to why I asked. Somebody asked me a question yesterday because I had to talk about it. I said, when do we stop CPR? And I said, 1, when the help comes, because that's the first thing I asked you to do, send for help. So ideally, if anything works, so what's our national emergency number? I'm going to put you on the spot. What's our national emergency number? What's our national emergency? 112. 112. So like how the Americans will call 911, we always, you see that in the films, call 911. That's actually the logical thing to do. Call emergency medical services. So in Nigeria, it's 112. That's our national emergency number. And you talk to them and they'll get help. But let's leave that story for another day. That's the ideal thing. Then you now start helping the victim until they arrive. So when you stop CPR again, once that help arrives. So that's one. The other thing is, he started this thing because this person was unconscious, and he now shows you signs of life. He opens his eyes, he moves, he starts to breathe in. Amazing, fantastic. That's why I did this. You're going to stop, right? And the third reason, which people do not like, but it is actually factual, and rather than that, it's that you're tired. It is exhausting to do CPR and do it right. So that's the issue. So that's just for CPR. So other conditions can come up.
You know, before we used to talk about first aid kits at home. I don't know how many of us have first aid kits at home right now.
I should ask you that because you know I would have.
That's why I'm stammering. Okay. Final word. We're almost run out of time, John. Have we?
First aid kit. I don't.
You have one, don't you?
I used to.
That's why I was stammering, because I don't have one.
It's about the content, not the container. People focus on the aesthetics. I want an orange box. I want a metal box. I get you. But the content is what matters. Do you have something to help with a bleed? Do you have something to help with somebody do CPR?
So what should be in it?
Yes, so that's what I'm saying. So if you're going to take your bleeds, which is a common thing, people are bleeding, plaster, sterile pads, bandages. Fire is burn, so there's one dressing just to keep it wrapped until you get to the hospital, because
somebody
as I said, choking, you have to come and do the first aid skill. Hit the person on the back. It's a skill. I can just tell you. I'll just say that, just find out about it or go for a practical first aid class.
Awesome. And that really must be it. If I leave Helen, she's going to ask you
I can imagine. It's a lot to
I want to get all the answers.
And you see, we've run out of time.
Yeah.
You know, but could we squeeze in like 20 seconds?
Yeah.
You know, could you just what message would you want to convey to families about?
I think I've said it.
You said it, no?
First aid.
Learn it.
I can't learn it. Learn it. Go for a practical class. I can't tell you how important that is, because these emergencies come up suddenly, in a moment. Everything has changed, and what would help you go through that is that I have the training, I have the knowledge, I have the confidence to act.
Okay. The training, the knowledge,
and
the
tools.
confidence,
the tools, a first aid
the
kit.
tools and the first aid tools to act. All right, so John and I just, you know, showed you that we don't have first aid kits at home, and she says it's not in the fancy of the first aid kits, but what you have in it. So how many homes and workplaces, you know, have functional first aid boxes? Not a lot, you know. So precautional measures are not like so important to us here, and what you're telling us is it is important.
Absolutely.
Because those first few minutes really count. Thank you.
Thank you.
It happens that in here, time flies.
I know. I'm actually surprised that it's over, honestly.
And as we have learned, 60 seconds is so critical and can make a difference between life and death. So I want to especially thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
The notice was short.
I know, but it's
you
okay.
made it
I
all the
actually
same.
didn't like to come. It's
Thank you
it's not a problem at all.
It's about saving life.
Absolutely.
Number one for the doctor.
Oh, really?
Yes. So thank you for coming.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
We have to move on now.
All right, so we'll take a very quick break. When we come back, not us now, Chizoba will be having a conversation with her guests, and they'll be looking at the fashion industry. You don't want to miss it. Stay with us.